Lauren Booth, and how do you deal if 26 members of your family were all killed in one raid? If it's just a bomb, then you can rationalize it somehow, but if there are shots directly to the chest of a 6-year-old, an 8-year-old, so how do you rationalize? So you saw this firsthand, the after effect of the aftermath. And when you told the story at the dinner talk about how the mother was showing a photograph, evidence of what I've just said, but she was seeing them alive, but you were seeing them dead. If you can recount for us that experience.
Well, do you know, in 2009, in March, I went with, joined Viva Palestina, led by George Galloway from Britain, and they were joined by a Libyan convoy, to go into Gaza for 24 hours and just take some aid and some goodwill, and to take away images of the situation as well and talk about it. And I went to the Al Samouni family. And there I met a woman with a plastic carrier bag on the rubble of their whole neighbourhood. Children running around with green snot on their faces because they were breathing in toxic dust. No shoes on their feet. And she came up to me and she said, "Would you like to see my sons?" And I looked around at the children and she said, "No, no, they're in here in the plastic bag." And she took out a photo that would chill any human being to the bone. And it was of 3 beautiful little boys. The first 2, the second 3, the third 5 or 6, with gunshot wounds in their chest. And their brown eyes looking up, beautiful little faces, but they've been shot in the chest by the Israeli army after they'd bombed the Al Zaytun neighbourhood. And that woman was still living in a tent on the rubble of her home, because the international community has not helped Gaza, despite the Goldstone report, despite the fact we know what's happened there. As long as the siege is allowed to take hold, these people will not get the help they need. And 50,000 people, families are still without homes.
That's the battle now. How to fight it outside Gaza. We might not be able to be there in Gaza or the West Bank, but we are here. And we are also participating in the discourse of the issues in the Middle East. And even for United Kingdom, and you know, it's always easy for people here to say that they have more press freedom. Work for press, TV, television, and it's not as simple as saying that you can write whatever you want. There will be no pressures on you or your establishment. But if I were to take that, then I saw what you wrote about how the bank accounts of Press TV is being frozen, for example, and how the lobbyist group will go to Ofcom, for example, the watchdog, if I can put it that way, and lodge hundreds of complaints about a single report.
Well, let us talk about WikiLeaks here, because there's been some people saying, why hasn't there been more about Israel from WikiLeaks? WikiLeaks is maybe working with Israel or the CIA because there isn't enough about Israel. Well, you know, only 2% of the WikiLeaks information on Israel has been used by the mainstream media on any of their news pages. So let's think about that. 98% of the WikiLeaks information about the Israeli government and its machinations in the Middle East and beyond has been got through the editorial control of major newsrooms and major newspaper editorial rooms. So we're not getting that information. So WikiLeaks is doing a great job, but it's not getting through the control that the mainstream media has on this story. Now, I'm not here to tell you why that control is there, but I can tell you as a journalist it is there. Now, I'll give you another example, the Mavi Marmara that ended in the dreadful slaughter of 9 innocent Turks taking aid to Gaza by ship last year. I tried for a week to get the BBC to cover that story while the Mavi Marmara was en route to Gaza. I called the BBC and I called Sky News and I said, why aren't you speaking to the Brits on board? These are British citizens doing a brave thing, and they might get, you know, they're risking injury. Not interested, Lauren. Not doing the Middle East this week, not interested. Now, why are they blocking these stories? Because it's very hard then if you meet the people who are aid workers and teachers, to write them off as terrorists, as the mainstream media tried to do. Hardline activists is the word they used for those good people who died and were attacked on the Mavi Marmara. Had we met them beforehand on our news bulletins, we couldn't say that. So is there an agenda? Yes. Why it's there? Well, that's another discussion.
What is the best way to fight it? Because there's more hope nowadays. There's Facebook, there's Twitter, and people are more globalized. People fly to other countries, for example, and they can hear accounts for themselves. Do you think that, because it's easy to paint a gloomy picture, but the fight is on.
No, don't be gloomy. Listen, go to the Palestine Chronicle, go to the Palestine Telegraph, go online and use alternative news sources. Facebook is absolutely awash with really, really good information sources. YouTube carries films every week uploaded from the West Bank, Bilin, B-I-L-I-N. Go put that into YouTube. There is a great deal of activity out there now. I'm not gloomy at all, because I can tell you that boycott, divestment on a civic, if not an international, national level, is working, and even countries like Norway are divesting from Israel. So there is activity and there are alternative news sources. So I feel very positive that people will be awake.
I have to go for the last commercial break, but once we are back, how do we fight this fight, even if we want to do it in the discourse way? Because sometimes it's easy to paint an evil picture of the whole of Israel, but we do know there are Muslim Arabs also in Israel. So we must really be careful of which group we paint a picture about. But when it gets mixed up in all this fight, sometimes it's easier to just stereotype one group of people and damn them. But that's not your fight. Your fight is to give more information and to make people more aware of what's going on. And even back in the UK, it's easy to see Tony Blair as the envoy to the Middle East and not see Lauren Booth saying it from the other side. For example, maybe we can pick from your struggles over the last few years and put that on a bigger platform. Let's discuss that after the short break. About Palestine, the Middle East and Israel, and it's not all the people in Israel that condones what's being done, that condone what's being done in Gaza, West Bank. There's this group that I found on the internet called Breaking the Silence. Israeli veterans and all, they're fighting from within. They're asking for accountability, and they have published reports that prove that rules of engagement will loosen whenever the IDF confront their enemies across, like Hezbollah or Hamas, and collateral damage is the people.
Do you know, before we congratulate the groups within Israel who are against their tax money going on killing children in Gaza and testing chemical weapons on civilian populations, we do need to recognise that the majority of Israelis, time and time again, vote in further right-wing governments that implement harsher regimes of control on the Palestinians. After Operation Cast Lead, the majority of Israelis approved of the operation. Now, how can you, as a voter, approve of the killing of 1,400 civilians, 800 children, the use of white phosphorus over homes and hospitals? That is a deep-seated disease in the political psyche of Israel that needs to be sorted out from within Israel. Now we can congratulate those within Israel, such as Breaking the Silence. There are an increasing number of traumatised young service people leaving the services knowing that they've committed crimes and with nowhere to go within that society. There are an increasing number of young people refusing to go into the army and serve at checkpoints and commit these crimes, and they continually get imprisoned. So we congratulate them. We congratulate B'Tselem, a human rights organisation who's struggling to stay alive with new laws controlling human rights organisations in Israel. But we must condemn those in Israel who back their government attacking Palestinians, not looking for a peaceful solution, and are not withdrawing their settlements, their illegal settlements in the West Bank. What are you doing?
Voting for the government means voting for the illegal walls that's encircling and adding to the misery of the Palestinian. But like Dr. Mazis said at the dinner, without the help of Britain, and maybe even to a larger extent, United States of America, might not be possible. And we saw how Obama's plan, suddenly Tel Aviv just say no, we're not going to concede over the illegal settlement and stop it dead right there. So without these two big powers changing, what hope do you think are there?
Do you know what? They're not going to change. Forget it. By all means, write off the British political establishment where justice for Palestine is concerned. Write off any US government, because Obama he hasn't even done a U-turn. He's never really done anything for the Palestinians or any of the problems in that part of the world. But do not write off the activities of human beings to gather together and make a difference. You know, the IHH project in Turkey, humanitarian project, is going to send a fleet of ships in this coming spring, a huge fleet of ships with the Free Gaza movement helping. This is incredible. This is people power. And they will keep challenging this illegal blockade of the sea. Israel does not have a right to own the seas.
Where more than 6 decades, governments all over the world have what they have failed to do. You believe civil society, groups like Free Gaza Movement, IAHA, George Galloway and yourself can rouse the sentiment of civil society all around the world and break this siege?
Well, you know what? I don't know that there's ever been in the history of politics a government who's actually woken up and said, I know, let's do the right thing today. It's going to cost us money and it's probably going to humiliate us and we're going to have to appear to change our mind, but we don't care. No, but there have been many, many governments and authoritarian regimes who, when the people rise up, suddenly find the money to change things or the will to overcome a tyrannous regime or a policy that's inhumane. So, you know, any change in politics has always come from the street level up.
People always say that when you are in power, it's not as easy as
you know
were
what?
before.
Actually, I make an exception there, except for Dr. Tun Mahathir,
Okay.
who was a very good leader and did lead from the top. So I make an exception.
Before I let you go, I have to ask you about Tony Blair, because he came over here and, you know, he talks about freedom and justice and all that. But he has many followers and he can sway people's opinion. But you think the younger population, the Generation Y, even in Britain itself, they know better? And they're not going to listen to the rhetorics of old leaders and old politicians, but they're looking for younger voices across the world that represent younger aspiration, and they want humanity to be upheld rather than anything else. Do you think that's happening?
Look, I think Tony Blair appeals to business people, billionaires and corrupt leaders with low morals, quite frankly. Young people today find their leaders on the internet and elsewhere, and it's important to remember the people of Iraq whenever we talk about a man's inhumanity to man. And frankly, Tony Blair is a war criminal who took Britain to war on a false concept that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction and should be done for war crimes.
I can't sum up the talk that you gave at Mandarin Oriental, but it was so inspiring. So I'm giving you a chance to tell the Malaysian audience and to raise their help in this struggle.
Would you like me to look at the
Yes,
camera?
please.
Look,
A message.
as a mother, I'm talking to you now. I have 2 children, and I would leave my children, and have done for many months, to work in Palestine and the West Bank, because this is the greatest crime on humanity in the last 60, 70 years. It's ongoing. Gaza is a concentration camp. Mothers are watching their children die there. For whatever God you follow, for God's sake, help them.
Thank you so much, Lauren. And that call will surely be heeded by a lot of people. And I learned a lot from you, not just about Gaza, but also you're my senior in broadcasting.
Bless you.
So there's a lot that I can do more. And if you missed the talk last Saturday, tomorrow there's going to be a talk by Lauren called My Journey to Islam at 8 p.m. at Club Golf Perkhidmatan Awam di Bukit Kiara, dan anda boleh pergi dan Google saja untuk mengetahui bagaimana dan caranya, siapakah yang menganjurkannya. Tapi itulah saja untuk malam ini daripada Sudut Pandang. Hantarkan pandangan anda daripada Sudut Pandang Astro.com.my dan kita jumpa lagi malam esok. Sekian, terima kasih.